And good morning, everybody. It's your host, Michael Rathburn, aka Rath. Hit me up at Twitter at FantasyRath here with today's DFS Minute for April 23rd, 2015. Not sure if we're going to have an evening edition tonight or not. I usually do take Thursdays off from daily because the short slate in the evenings makes it where I just take a day off and try to get some personal stuff done. So probably not going to be back here for a DFS Minute in the evening. So we'll hit you up in the morning. But I'm going to cover what happened last night, talk about the differences between 50-50 contests on FanDuel and DraftKings. I think, especially for new players, probably wouldn't really realize the difference, but we'll talk about the difference and what it means for you. Go over some of the price changes today, and then talk about today's slate. And then also we're going to run down some of what's going on here at RotoCurve. We do have some new things going on. I want to let everybody know that it's not just about DFS Minute. It's not just about the curve or the waggle, which is our golf show. We do have some tools and we do have a forum, and we really want you guys to actively participate and give us feedback on what we have going on so we can make it the best site out there in DFS. Last night, all about David Price and the absolute just meltdown of David Price. And it's been a frustrating week for pitchers. If you had Shoemaker on Monday night like I did, we were fortunate that all the bats came through. But Shoemaker had a bad game on Monday. Liriano had a bad game on Tuesday. David Price had a bad game on Wednesday. It's been tough from that perspective. That's why if you play on 2 different sites or 3 different sites, a lot of times you can diversify who you have out there. You can profit on one site, break even on another, and maybe lose a bit on another, and at the end of the night, you're okay. So all your eggs aren't in one basket when things don't go the way that you expected. Now, moving on to David Price. David Price was a topic of conversation last night quite heavily because there were a lot of people that had him as the #1 play, and there were a lot of people that said absolutely no way. The Yankees beat him up last time out. He's got bad history against these guys. He's going to bust. And the people that told you he was going to bust, they sure made it known last night that I told you so, that David Price wasn't going to do anything. It was very vocal, and it's pretty interesting because the risk that you have, and this is what we've always tried to say here, at least myself and here at RotoCurve, is when you put yourself out there and you say, I told you so, you better be prepared to swallow it when it doesn't go your way and say, hey, you know what? I gave out this guy as a top play and it didn't work out. Well, the thing is, Curtin Clishaw didn't necessarily work out for you on FanDuel last night if you took him, because at the huge price tag that he had at $12K, he put up 13 FanDuel points. That's not enough. In your heads-ups and 50-50s, unless your bats went off last night, and not many of them did, you probably did not cash with Kershaw in your head-to-heads and 50-50s on FanDuel. If you did, I'm sure I'm going to hear about it. But for the most part, if you only got 13 and he swallowed up 30% of your salary cap, I tried building lineups with Kershaw on FanDuel last night, and I just didn't like the way that it looked. It just looked too risky. I felt like if he didn't get 16 to 20 points last night, it wasn't going to be good. And I really liked Cueto. So we did talk about Cueto, the fact that the Brewers lineup was decimated. Cueto went out there and really saved my teams on the one pitcher site, FanDuel, which in the 50-50s and the heads-ups. So Cueto definitely saved my rear end last night. And at his price tag, it allowed you to build a so-so lineup. I didn't feel great about the lineup because, again, we've talked about the problem on FanDuel is that the hitting salaries are not coming down. They're juicing up the hitters, and the guys that are high, they're juicing them up, and the guys that are cold, they're not coming down. That's the way the salary algorithm works. So when you have a day when there's aces and you have to go ace, you have to scrape and dig for value and probably go outside the normal realm of what you would normally pick. So that's just how you have to play it. Unfortunately, if you had Price on DraftKings, there was really no way that you could overcome the negative 15 or whatever he put up. Even with Cueto, where I had lineups with Cueto and Price, there was just no overcoming it unless the bats had just gone ballistic. But if Price had gone out there and done what he had done, it would have been. But so here's the deal. So if you touted Kershaw as a #1 play last night on FanDuel, maybe you ought to swallow some humble pie a little bit. Just saying, if you're going to take credit for the Price thing, you got to also say, hey, you know what? Kershaw didn't come through with a 16 or 20, so I wasn't exactly right on that either. That's all I'm saying. I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just saying, just be prepared that if you do the I told you so's, you got to be prepared for when it doesn't work out. So that's my take on that. If you want to call it a Rath's rant or Rath's wrath, because that's what a lot of people want me to start doing. I've had a lot of people that say, we want you to do a Rath rant, or we want you to do a Raths, or whatever it is. I guess that's the first one for the day, first one this year. That would be my Rath's wrath for the day. 50-50s, FanDuel and DraftKings, especially for new players that don't really follow it or aren't really paying attention. There are differences, okay? The difference is when you play a 50-50 or a double up on DraftKings, it does pay out 50% of the field, but you don't double your money. You double your money minus the rake. So you're gonna play in a contest. You're gonna play $1. You're not gonna win $2. You're gonna win $1.80, because what they're doing is they're paying out 50% of the field, and then they're giving you double your money minus the rake, which is the percentage that they take, which is normally 10%. Okay, on FanDuel, it's different, okay? And this is where I don't really like it. I do play those, but I think as a new player, it is a little bit misleading, in my opinion. So they don't pay out 50% of the field. They pay out 45% of the field, but you do double your money. So if you're playing a 223-man, $5 double up 50-50 on FanDuel, it's not 111 or 112 because it's an odd number. The math doesn't work. So they're paying the top 100 out of 223. That's 45%. That's not a 50-50. That's not a double up in the pure definition of math, if you want to get into the semantics, okay? So just be aware. I'm telling you, as a new player, be aware, because you may wake up and you may look at your lineup and say, wait a minute, I finished in 105 out of 223. Why didn't I cash? It's because of the way that they've structured it. I personally am not a fan of it, but again, that's if I'm not a fan of it, then I shouldn't play it. I'm not going to cry about it. It's more of an education tool for new players to let you know that not all 50-50s and double ups are created equal, and that's the differences on each site. Quickly on price adjustments, nothing really on FanDuel today that I could see, other than what is notable is Garrett Cole's salary did drop. He went down to $8,600. He dropped $600. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Garrett Cole's next start, whatever that happens to be, if it's a good matchup, you are getting him at a little bit of a discount. As far as the DraftKings salaries go, we know they go up and down every day based on matchups and parks. Bartolo Colon got juiced up pretty good. He's up to $8,400, $1,600 jump. So that's pretty high. Dodgers, Marlins, and Pirates have all gone up. The Dodgers game is a little bit shaky because we weren't sure if it was going to be Pettit or Vogelsong going. It looks like it's going to be Vogelsong. So those three teams have gone up. Miami went up because they're facing Dustin McGowan, and the Pirates went up because they're facing Kyle Hendricks. On the downside, the Tigers have gone down because they're facing Tanaka, and the Royals have gone down because they're facing Chris Sale. I do like what they're doing. The one thing I think is, just as a new player, is if you don't have somebody explaining to you what's going on with the salaries at DraftKings and why they're moving up and down every day, I think it can be a little bit tough and a little bit intimidating. So I kind of wish that they'd come out and said, hey, this is what's going into our salaries. This is how we're doing it. I understand why they don't come out and say it, but I just think for new players, it would be good if they knew what consisted into the salary algorithm. Not saying they have to give away the whole recipe. They want to hold back on the secret sauce, that's fine. But at least let people know and just say, hey, even if it's like a little information box on salaries or something like that, and just say salaries may factor in a number of different things: park factor, pitching matchup, lefty righty. It could be just a generic statement. That way there people know. But so you are going to see fluctuations in DraftKings salaries. On the flip side, though, it does offer opportunities and where you can take advantage of that, and we try to identify those each night. That'll do a DFS minute in the PM. I'll try to tell you where I think there's some low salaries on DraftKings where I think you could take advantage, or maybe their algorithm didn't necessarily work correctly. As far as the lines go today, there is no line on Miami, Philadelphia as of this point. I think McGowan was more of a late add. Dustin McGowan's a guy who was a top prospect in the Blue Jays organization and really looked to be promising, but then he had a ton of shoulder injuries. He's been probably the most injured pitcher in baseball over the last 5 or 6 years. He's been pitching out of the Philadelphia bullpen. And it's just great to see the guy back in baseball. I put it out there around opening day, the first week of baseball. Like, just the fact that guy's actually throwing is almost a miracle because he's had so many injuries. So, but it could get ugly today. So, definitely take a look at some Miami guys at the top of the lineup. If Yelich is in, if D. Gordon's in, be aware that Thursday with all these day games, there's a strong likelihood that a lot of players that played night games last night are not going to be in the lineups tonight. So what does that mean? That means that there could be a lot of value out there from the hitting side if you have a lot of cheap players that are normally on the bench that are now hitting in prime lineup spots. Also means that you're going to have more price flexibility and salary cap relief to be able to take some of the bigger studs. So you're going to be able to have more of a stars and scrubs type lineup, but feel comfortable because you have some good value plays. On the pitching side today, it is pretty weak. We'll talk about some of those guys, but typically that's what you're going to see with so many day games today. Those are the things you want to catchers for sure. A lot of backup catchers are probably going to be going today. Look at some of those middle infielders, anybody that played a long game, just in general, that's the direction that managers are going to take. Also, be aware of any weather issues today because you have so many day games. There could be some weather issues, so just be aware of that. I would advise you to play early only today. There is a pretty big slate, and especially like I always say on DraftKings, look at that qualifier tab and look to see if there's any 25-cent, $2, $3, $5 qualifiers out there where you can win a ticket into a bigger tournament in the future. I'm not saying to go crazy, but just if you want to enter one or two to have a little bit of fun, just to say, hey, maybe I can get a bigger entry into a bigger tournament. So that would be my recommendation there. So as far as studs go today, Chris Sale is the top guy, it looks like, but he doesn't necessarily. He does come with a little bit of risk, meaning he is at home and Sale's a beast. He is going against a lineup that's got some lefties, but KC doesn't really strike out that much. But I think in this spot, you still got to roll with Sale because he's just the top shelf guy, and he's probably going to get the win. So for me, he would be more of a play on FanDuel because I need the win. I need this. I need the Ks. I need the innings pitched. So you can go out there and give me 7-8, give me 8 Ks, give me a win. I'm looking at him paying off pretty good. Now the other top guy on the board is Scherzer. Now he's going against Waka, so you always run a risk when you have two good pitchers going in a low-scoring total game that it could be a situation where there's no win. So they're a lot more risky on FanDuel than they are on DraftKings. So you can actually roll with both sides of the game. You could actually roll with a Scherzer and a Waka in the same game on DraftKings, and I think be okay. I don't really recommend that strategy too much, but in this situation, you might be able to get away with it. I think Waka's got a pretty good price tag, and the Nationals lineup is pretty weak right now. So other than that, there's some matchups out there that there's some good pitchers going, but I'm not really sure. I think you just don't get cute today with pitchers. There might be a couple of value plays depending on how the lineups come out. One of the things that you absolutely want to look at today is I talked about how a lot of players rest, and managers are going to rest players. Look for lineups where big boppers, the big star hitters, are not hitting. They're sitting out today. That would be an opportunity for you to possibly take a pitcher. If you have a lineup where there's 1 or 2 or 3 top guys that are out and normally hitting the top of the lineup or normally the power guys, and they're sitting today for whatever reason, that's an opportunity for you to take that pitcher because you're getting great value because the lineup that he was expected to go against is much weaker than the lineup that he is going to ultimately go against. So from that perspective, definitely keep an eye on lineups today and who is out. That's going to be key, especially for new players. If you're looking for that second pitcher and you got to go Sale and you got to go Scherzer and you got to drop down, you got to find some value, that's where you're going to find value today. Look for a low-scoring game where the pitcher is favored and there's some hitters that are not playing. That would be the strategy that you want to look at for today. The last thing I want to get to today is us, Roto Curve. It's going to be a little bit of a pitch. because we do have some new things, and I want to update you guys on what's going on. A lot of positive feedback from everybody out there. I'm getting a lot of emails, a lot of tweets saying, hey, you guys are a breath of fresh air. You guys are bringing good stuff. We like the approach. We like the content. I'm learning every day. And that's really all we're trying to do. We're trying to bring a positive approach to DFS where new players can listen and learn and accelerate their learning curve, where they're going to put up winning lineups every day. I'm going to tell you what contests to play, how to build a lineup, how to build a bankroll, and do it in a way where you're not going to feel intimidated, where you're going to understand what we're saying. We're going to break it down for you. And then we're going to give you those teaching sessions and those teaching points and strategy sessions, like what Josh and Benny did again yesterday, where they crushed it again, in my opinion, talking about how to use fan graphs, how to do research, things like that. Just really, really, and then also Benny did some great stuff on heads up. I touched on heads ups. He touched on heads ups. And one of the things that was important with last night on heads ups is, let's say you had David Price on FanDuel. Well, if you win against David Price on FanDuel, that washes out, so you don't have to worry about it. Now you're looking at a situation where it's your hitters against that other person's hitters. So not all is lost when your pitcher blows up in a head-to-head, because if it's a heavily owned guy and you're going against a big percentage of him out there, now you may have played heads-ups, and most of your teams were either going against Kershaw, Cueto, or Price. Now, if you win against Cueto, if you had Cueto, then you're fine. But if you win against Cueto and you had Price, you were toast. But if you went Price, you probably, it's your batters against their batters, and hopefully you came out ahead. So just kind of reiterating on what Benny did yesterday and touching on what those guys did, and talking about what we got going on here at RotoCurve and just the positive feedback that we're getting. Our lineups page, we have a DraftKings lineups page and we have a FanDuel lineups page where you can get the exact lineup in the batting order with the salaries. That page is actually going to be built out even more, but we just wanted to get it up and get you something out there. It's been very useful, been very helpful for a lot of guys. And I'm telling you, man, when this page is done, we're gonna blow it out. It's gonna be sweet. You're gonna be able to go on that page. You're gonna be able to get what you need to get in a matter of minutes, and you're gonna be on your way. Look under the DFS tools on the rotocurve.com homepage. Go into DFS tools. We got the lineup page. We also have our daily picks. Now, what we're doing with the daily picks is a little bit different. A lot of guys want to put out picks, and all they want to do is take superstar players. That's not what we're doing, because you can't build a lineup in DFS with superstar players. We'll give you a high option, and we'll give you a value option. That way there you can look at it and say, hey, these are the guys that I agree with on the high side, and these are the guys I agree with on the low side, and now I can build an actual lineup. An article or a picks do nobody any good when all you're doing is recommending the top 3 guys in every single game. Anybody can do that. It doesn't benefit you. It doesn't benefit me. I can't say I'm right when I pick 50 guys in a given slate and I pick the top 3 hitters in every game. That's completely meaningless. Maybe that's another Rath rant for today. I don't know, but I do get frustrated when I hear people out there going through every single game and taking the top 3 hitters and recommending top 3 hitters in every game and then taking credit for it when it goes right. It's really not good advice of what you're giving people, and it's really something that you need to be aware of. We also have an MLB scoring leader page. What you can do right now, it's just for DraftKings. You can go back and look at the last 5 days, and you can see who are the top guys at every position, what their salary was, what their box score was. So you can click on there today, and you can see who was the top guy at first base on DraftKings, who was the top guy, and it's going to give you every single player, not just the top guy. But you can see who was top, who was the bottom. You can see the pitchers. You can see every position. So I think that's a really nice tool. It's a great way for you to get your box score. Instead of going to MLB.com and checking all your box scores and spending a half an hour doing it, clicking on every single game, you can go to rotocurve.com under DFS tools, look for that scoring leaders tab, and get your box scores in a matter of minutes and be on your way. So we like that tool. Again, we're going to blow it out. We're going to have much more coming in that direction as well. Our forums. We definitely want you to be active in our forums. We are doing participation points where you get points for actions that you do. And eventually over time, what we're going to do is you're going to have the ability to get RotoCurve merchandise, merch, swag, whatever you want to call it. Also, possibly what we're looking at is partnering up with some of these DFS sites where you can actually get credits for contests on those sites and get tickets for the points that you earn on RotoCurve. So that's something we got baking, we're cooking, and we're excited about everything we got going on. I hope you guys enjoyed today. I know I got opinionated, but sometimes that's just the way it's got to be. And it's not something that I'm going to do very often, but I felt like it was necessary. So hopefully I didn't cross the line too much, and you guys understand where I'm coming from, and we can all be good. So this is Rath signing off for the DFS Minute for today. And as we always say here at RotoCurve, stay classy, DFS.